Welcome back. We now cross to Zimbabwe, where Peter Ndoro will be speaking to SABC Foreign editor Sophie Mokoena and Dr. Pedzisai Ruhanya, a media analyst, about the much-anticipated Zim election and the media's role leading up to this point. Peter, good to be chatting to you. Hello, how is the mood like in Zimbabwe?
A very good morning to you, Bongi. Thanks so much for crossing to us. Yeah, it's a breezy Sunday morning. The sun is out, and yeah, this is the day that people get their last opportunity to think through what they're going to do tomorrow. It's being dubbed the most anticipated elections since independence, partly because Robert Mugabe is not on the ballot box amongst the 23 other hopefuls that will be running for president in the harmonized elections taking place tomorrow. Yesterday they had their final rallies, important messages made by both leaders of ZANU-PF and the MDC alliance, seen largely as the two main front runners. But today, a normal tradition for Zimbabweans is to go out and get the Sunday newspapers to see what's on the headlines. And we're going to take a look at those. And as you said, helping me to talk through the media and also some of the political issues is our SABC Foreign editor, Sophie Mokoena. Sophie, thanks for joining us.
Morning, Peter. Morning.
And also Dr. Pedzisai Ruhanya, who's an analyst attached to the University of Johannesburg, but you're back home as well. Morning to you.
Good morning, and thanks for inviting me.
All right, let me start with you, Sophie. Sunday papers are out, and it's a mix between the the private media and the publicly owned newspapers. Your take on what we're seeing?
Well, when you look at newspapers, let me start with the Sunday Times. You can see that true to the South African culture, you have a newspaper that took a decision to ensure that it's fairly balanced in terms of their coverage with the front page. You have both the MDC and ZANU-PF supporters, and the headline itself, Zimbabwe's historic election. It doesn't say anything about any leader or any party. It's a straightforward headline that speaks to the fact that people will decide, and you have ordinary people in the front page. You look at the Zimbabwe Independent, it's a do or die from Mnangagwa. You have the picture of the president, Mnangagwa, and Nelson Chamisa, but the headline there, it speaks to what Mnangagwa said, but it doesn't really speak to what Nelson Chamisa said. You go to another newspaper, the Sunday Mail, something special brewing, ED, also only about the current president, at least inside Zimbabwe decides. It speaks to people, ordinary people are going to decide, of course. And then the Gazette, you have business, it's more business inclined, and it speaks to the aspirations of business community. They want a better economy. You go to the Daily News, very balanced, all the candidates, main candidates in the front page. And then, of course, you go to the Standard, more of MDC, because Chamisa eclipsed ED. When you read this, when you are in South Africa or you are somewhere in the world or in passing, oh, elections are over. Chamisa has won.
All right.
So, different ways of telling the story.
All right, so Dr. Ruhanya, looking at the mix between the public and private media, this doesn't surprise you?
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me, but what we expect from the newspapers or from the media is at least to tell the truth. The truth is what should bind them. But I'm not surprised with how the state media, which is supposed to be a public media, which addresses the public interest, are covering the incumbent president, because they have not been showing a public interest view where all political parties have a say or are covered equally. But also, if you look at the Daily News, I think it puts the pictures of all political contestants, which I think is fair. Everyone has a chance to see who's contesting and who's not contesting. So I think the Daily News is being fair. What the newspapers should do is simply to tell the people the truth and nothing but the truth.
All right, so what's fascinating to me now, the public broadcaster, the SABC, was on air last night, and I sampled it. I watched for a full hour their main news bulletin at 8 o'clock. So 60 minutes, they had a special one. For 60 minutes, they showed the opposition parties, all of them, that they could cover for less than 15 minutes. ZANU-PF got 40 minutes coverage. The main opposition party, the MDC Alliance, Nelson Chamisa, got 2.5 minutes in an hour's coverage. This is something that must be quite alarming.
It is not alarming because Zimbabweans are used to it. The ZBC is supposed to be a public broadcaster. And because it is supposed to be a public broadcaster like SABC, it must reflect the diversity of our people, the diversity of political contestants, and it must serve the national interest. But one area in the Zimbabwe political contestation that has been seriously contested is the media, particularly the public media, that it is captured, that it acts like a propaganda mouthpiece for the ruling party, and that is reflected in the manner in which they put across the public views, how they cover the political parties. In fact, 95% of ZBC coverage is for the ruling party and its presidential candidate, President Mnangagwa, against the opposition and its diversity.
All right. Sophie, how do we manage this kind of thing in South Africa?
Well, let's talk about yesterday in particular. Yesterday, you have a situation where you have two main parties. Both, you have to cover the events. You are here, you don't have enough resources. What do? You think on your feet. You have to think very, very fast. What am I going to do? What we did the ZANU-PF rally and immediately dashed to MDC rally. But with a public broadcaster in that particular country, what you have to do, this is how we normally do it. We engage all political parties. For example, 2016, for the first time during the local government election, you had a political party taking the ruling party head on in terms of the final rally. Same day. What did we do? We spoke to both parties, we indicated our dilemma, and we brought to their attention that we want to cover both parties. Therefore, one party must take the morning session, the other party must take the afternoon session. We finally agreed the African National Congress was going to start and the EFF was going to be in the afternoon. We had our resources in both rallies. As soon as the then president of the ANC was done, President Zuma, Malema walked to the stadium and we started with the EFF rally. Engage the political parties. They are institutions and they are human beings also who are leading those parties. And when you engage them, you always find solutions. But the reality is with politicians, at times it's very difficult, but sometimes you are able to get it right when you engage them. And that's what we did. And I think with ZBC, they could have done the same. You know, speak to different parties, indicate your challenge, and try to engage them to ensure that you are able to cover the elections in a much better way. And two, I think they will have to change the Broadcasting Act, you know, to arrive at a situation where they will be able to do the work the way they are supposed to. Remember, the Broadcasting Act in Zimbabwe is quite different from South Africa.
All right. I'm mindful of time, so I'm going to try and move this on a little bit because tomorrow they have to make up their minds, Zimbabweans, and decide who they're going to vote for. They may or may not have been influenced by the media, but what was interesting for me is when I listened to both speeches yesterday, they were talking about the same thing. They were talking about new Zimbabwe, change, and so on and so forth. And I just wonder, from listening to their speeches, Dr. Ruhanya, who was more convincing that might swing the vote in their favor?
You see, the general feeling in the country, it appears there is an organic movement for change. Usually when you enter into the political terrain such as we are in Zimbabwe, where you have a lot of excitement, where people are ready to go for election, usually people are not excited to go and restore an incumbent regime. So this kind of excitement is like the excitement in 1994 during the South African first elections, or Zimbabwe's first elections in 1980. People are not interested, or people are not excited to restore an incumbent. Usually when we have this kind of environment, it's an environment for change, it's an environment for new things. So what we are likely to do, if people were going to vote in huge numbers, we can actually see a fundamental change in the political economy of the state.
All right. Sophie, your assessment for yesterday's speeches?
Well, of course, the message is the same because the challenges are the same. One, the main issue, the economic challenge. How are you going to address the economic challenges? And both leaders are trying very hard to convince the voters that they have a plan. That is why I'm saying the message is similar. Secondly, you have an incumbent who is saying, I have experience. But the question is, some are saying, do you have credibility? You have another candidate, Chamisa, saying, I have a plan to deal with the challenges facing the country. Some are saying, yes, you are new, you don't have experience. Others are saying, we want a new person. Perhaps you will come up with better solutions. So it's very difficult.
All right, so tomorrow they go to the polls. The pollsters, whether we believe them or not, they're saying that it's very close and that there's a 20% grouping that either didn't want to say who they were going to vote for or were undecided. And when they show up, they're really going to be the ones that decide what the outcome is. I wonder, Dr. Ruhanya, for Zimbabwe to move forward, what might be the best result in your view?
The best result for me, and given the political and economic decomposition of the state for the past 13 years, is a change result. To see something else, to experience something different, and if those who will be elected after 30 July, if they fail to manage the affairs of the state, when we go to another election, Zimbabweans must have a culture of changing leaders, changing governments, when they fail to meet their mandate. But also, when the incumbent president talks about a new dispensation, and we have a captured media like we have, there's nothing new about what is happening. But also in terms of the policy, like they were talking yesterday, the change message that the incumbent is talking about has been the message of the opposition since 2000. So the incumbent is actually speaking like an opposition leader when he has been in power or in government or in the state since 1980.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time, and that's where we're going to have to leave it. Sophie Mokoena, Dr. Pedzisai, Ruhanya, thank you very much indeed, both of you, for your insights. And thank you for tuning in for this segment of Media Monitor. But we'll have more coverage for you throughout the course of the day from Zimbabwe on the eve of those historic elections. From us, goodbye.
Thank you very much, Peter. Make us proud there as the SABC. Of course, it's a